And please be seated. Good morning. Happy Easter. Welcome to Arlington Street Church, gathered in love and service for justice and peace. Welcome to the soul of Sunday. We are Unitarian Universalists. Ours is a historic faith with a progressive theology. We affirm the worth and dignity of every being, and that we are all deeply interconnected. We are bound to one another not by creed, but by covenant. And we are called to answer the call of love with open minds, open hearts, and open hands. Whoever you are, those of all nations, all creeds, all colors, all kinds of love, you are welcome here. As we gather, we acknowledge that Arlington Street Church occupies the ancestral home of the Massachusetts. By making this land acknowledgement, we recognize, honor, and affirm the sovereignty of all First Nations peoples. Dear ones, what a joy to see you in your Hollywood squares and to welcome the incarnate congregation to the pews this morning for our very first hybrid high holiday. A joyous Passover, happy Easter, and happy Boston Marathon weekend to one and all. Our beloved executive minister, Beth Robbins, joins me in a very special thanks to our volunteers here in the sanctuary today. Tech team lead Art Nava is on the Zoom deck. Cam Moorhead is in the Zoom room. Matt Malakowski is on sound, and videographer Richard Brew is on camera. We are so grateful. Thank you to the Great Doors team, ensuring that we can gather safely in person. That's Queen Cheryl and her team. There are greeters, Bill Briggs, Keith Perrin, and their team are our ushers. Thank you, dear ones. Thank you to our musicians for this very special Sunday. Director of Music, Mark David Buckles. I should say Director of Music and Conductor, Mark David Buckles. Our soloists, Hannah Shanefield, Beck Sarah, Daniel Rosenzweig, Andrew Stack, and Joe Della Penna. And the Arlington Street Church Choir. And a very special thank you and welcome to our Easter Sunday Orchestra. Our own Cheng Cheng and Julie Metcalf are joined by Ariel Friedman, Karen Burciaga, and Sam Childers. We're so thrilled you're here. Our singers are following a COVID-19 testing protocol so they can sing unmasked. We've closed the first 4 pews up front to keep everyone safe. A reminder that those in the sanctuary should be physically distancing from those who are not in your family or pod. And when your pew is full, please close your pew door so people who arrive after you know that it's full, even if you're the only one sitting there. Finally, for those who are new to Arlington Street, a very special welcome to you. For those of you in the sanctuary, there are welcome cards in the pew racks. Please hand it to an usher or drop it in the basket at Great Doors as you leave. And for those of you in the Zoom room, please fill out a connection card. The link is in the chat. It includes an option to request the link to a recording of today's sermon. Since I can't greet all of you in person after the service, I would love to follow up with a virtual hello. Friends, whether you've been coming here for years or today is your first time at Arlington Street, welcome home.
Good morning, my friends. Happy Passover and happy Easter. If you haven't already downloaded today's order of service, it's available in the chat and on the homepage at ascboston.org. For our guests here in the sanctuary, there are printed copies at the Great Doors. Also on the homepage, you'll find a link to Sermon Bingo. Feel free to play along while Reverend Kim preaches. As we begin our greetings, I invite the Zoomers and those of us here in the sanctuary with a device handy to please say hello in the chat, and tell us where you're zooming in from today. And now, Rich is going to turn the camera on the incarnate congregation as we wave and smize at each other and at our friends in the Zoom room. And you all in the Zoom room can wave and smile back. Hello, friends. Let's all engage that Arlington Street spirit of welcome that transcends physical distance as we greet one another heart to heart.
Our next hymn is Guide My Feet. During the hymn, I'd like to ask those of you who are running tomorrow's marathon, your family members and special friends and marathon course volunteers to please meet me in the center aisle. Let me see, is anyone here in that esteemed group? Fantastic. Great. All right. I'm thrilled you're here. Welcome, welcome. We would have blessed you either way, but it's more fun with you here. Yeah, I'll meet you in a minute in the center aisle. And meanwhile, let us all rise in body or spirit and sing, Guide My Feet.
Guide my feet while I run this race. Guide my feet while I run this race. Guide my feet while I run this race. For I don't want to run this race in vain. Let's all sing, guide my feet. Guide my feet while I run this race. Guide my feet while I run this race. Guide my feet while I run this race. For I don't want to run this race in vain. Hold my hand, hold my hand while I run this race. Hold my hand while I run this race. Hold my hand while I run this race. For I don't want to run this race in vain. Stand by me, stand by me while I run this race. Stand by me while I run this race. Stand by me while I run this race. For I don't want to run this race in vain. Search my heart. Search my heart while I run this race. Search my heart while I run this race. Search my heart while I run this race. For I don't want to run this race in vain. Guide my feet, guide my feet while I run this race. Guide my feet while I run this race. Guide my feet while I run this race. For I don't want to run this race in vain. For I don't want to run. For I don't want to run this race in vain. One more time. For I don't want to run this race in vain.
Beautiful. I'm going to ask that the Zoomers please face in the direction of Boston. And will everyone in the sanctuary please turn in place to face Andrew? And we are going to bless him. He is going to run with our blessing. Maybe he's going to win. He's going to be so blessed. Normally, we would be putting our hands on each other. It's way too COVID-y. So what I'm going to suggest is that we just open our palms as we face Andrew. Just open your palms. Feel the blessing flowing from your heart out to Andrew. Oh, that is just beautiful. Beautiful, my friends. Gorgeous. Okay, you just take this all in. You can put your hands on your heart and just feel it. Are you running? What's your name? Jane, come here. This is too exciting. Jane and Andrew, beautiful. All right, everyone, hands out to Jane and Andrew. Fantastic. Great, congratulations. All right, friends, let us abide for a moment of silence now with just one sentence from the very first book of the 12th book of Hebrews. Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us. Beloved marathon runners, Jane, Andrew, may the road rise up to meet you, the wind be at your back, and may the love of this great gathered company, which we now convey to you through our hands, give you strength to uplift you and carry you across the finish line with great joy. Bless your feet and bless your hearts. Godspeed. And let the people say amen.
Amen.
Good luck tomorrow. We'll be praying for you. It's going to be beautiful, beautiful.
It is now time for our treasured ritual of sharing community candles of sorrow and joy. These candles were submitted on our website by the Friday evening deadline. If you didn't submit your candle and have a joy or a sorrow to share this morning, please wait until the third candle is lit, the silent candle, and then type your joy or sorrow in the chat. Those in the sanctuary are welcome to light a silent candle at the table up front to the right of the Gleason podium. Zoomers are invited to light silent candles at home. As we know, it's always the same light. In addition to sharing our sorrows and joys this morning, let's reach out to one another in the week ahead, staying connected. May these times remind us of how very precious this beloved community is. We need one another. Whether together or apart, may we stay very close. And now, in the spirit of invocation, let's join in singing Sanctuary. The words are printed in your order of service and in the chat.
Some of us come today with heavy hearts. We open our hearts to you.
A candle of sorrow for all of the people traumatized by the subway shooting in Brooklyn this week. Our hearts are with you. A candle of deep sorrow at the tragic death of Patrick Lyoya in Grand Rapids this week. Patrick was a Black man who was fatally shot by a white officer during a traffic stop. Our hearts are heavy at yet another senseless murder. A candle of ongoing concern for the people of Ukraine and for the courageous Russians who are standing up to their government. A candle of concern for the shooting at a busy shopping mall in Columbia, South Carolina this week, and the ease with which people can unlawfully obtain guns. Our final candle of sorrow is from the Arlington Street congregation. We are sending lots of love to our dear Dorothy Batiste, who has been at Mass General Hospital this week and is looking forward to going home very soon. We are so grateful to our own Sandy Dixon, who has arranged for Dorothy to be with us on Zoom today from her hospital room. And for Reverend Erica Rose Long, who has been providing pastoral care to Dorothy. We love you, Dorothy. Thank you, Sandy and Erica.
And some of us come today in joy. We share your joy.
A candle of joy from the Arlington Street Church congregation in celebration of Alden McNulty and her 14th birthday today. Happy birthday, Alden. We love you. A candle of joy for Harriet Ranvig. Happy 30th anniversary of walking through the great doors of Arlington Street Church. Our final candle of joy is from the Arlington Street congregation. Congratulations to our own Mary Galach's niece, Abby, who just made the under 20 Women's National Ultimate Frisbee team. She'll be competing in Poland this summer. Go, Abby.
For all the sorrows and all the joys we hold in our hearts, we light a silent candle to remember and to rejoice. May the peace of this sanctuary enter into our hearts as we share a quiet moment together, breathing our prayers for ourselves, for one another, for our country, and for the world. Amen.
Let's join now in saying together the affirmation and covenant of this beloved spiritual community. The words are printed in your order of service and in the chat. Love is the spirit of this congregation, and service is our gift. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to speak our truths in love, and to help one another.
El amor es el espíritu de nuestra congregación y el servicio es nuestro regalo. Esto es a lo que nos comprometemos, convivir en paz, hablar nuestras verdades con amor y ayudarnos los unos a los otros.
Our next hymn is O Day of Light and Gladness. The words are printed in the order of service and in the chat. Let's rise in body, rise in spirit, and join in singing together.
On Passover and Easter Sunday, the facts don't matter. I am well aware that this is blasphemy. But what I mean is this: every theological argument for the literal truth of the Bible can be refuted by scholars. Every scholarly argument against the literal truth of the Bible can be refuted by theologians. And from the long ago time I was trying to slog through these arguments, the theologians contradicting one another, the scholars refuting one another, this is the torture of divinity school. I can tell you it was clear to me then, and it is clear to me now, that for once, the facts are not what matter. What matters are the stories. The story of the Exodus tells us that Moses, an unlikely prophet, encountered God in a burning bush, led the Israelites up out of Egypt, across the Red Sea to Mount Sinai, wandering in the desert for 40 years, and at the age of 120, within sight of the promised land, died. The story of the Rabbi Jesus tells us that he preached love of self and enemy alike, was murdered by the state for his radicalism, and that his tomb was empty, freeing us to life everlasting. These are the stories of a people's liberation from bondage, despite every odd against them. The story of the redeeming and resurrecting power of love, despite every odd against it. And then there are the 10,000 stories descended from these. Today, we are called to the spiritual practice of living these stories. I am thinking this morning of cousins, Lesia Orshoko and Alona Chugai, two among the millions of Ukrainians who are running from their lives as Russian forces invade their homeland. They landed in Israel last month and were greeted by Sharon Bass, a friend who was repaying an ancient kindness. In Ukraine, during the Holocaust, Sharon's grandmother was sheltered and saved by Lesia's grandmother. Nearly 80 years ago, Fanya Rosenfeld Bass lost her parents and 5 siblings to the Nazis. She alone was hidden in the Ukrainian town of Rafalovka by a courageous woman named Maria Blychik. In 1944, when the Red Army liberated Rafalovka, Fanya moved to Israel to begin again. Over and over, she told the story to her children and her grandchildren, the story of the good woman who sustained her moral compass and her humanity in the face of unspeakable immorality and inhumanity. In 1995, Yad Vashem, Israel's Holocaust Museum, honored Maria as righteous among the nations. Fania lived to be 97 years old. Maria's granddaughter, Lesia, and Alona's visas out of Ukraine to Israel, made possible by her granddaughter, Sharon, came through on the 3rd anniversary of Fania's death. This is the story of a safe homecoming to the promised land. This is the meaning of resurrection. We too live these homecoming and resurrection stories. Each of us has lived through 2 years of a global pandemic, yearning to be free. At worst, we have known the darkness of the tomb, abandonment, betrayal, disappointment, failure, illness, loss. At best, we understand ourselves as one among 7.2 billion people going through it all together. Understand that having lived beyond the nearly 6.2 million lives lost to COVID-19, it is ours now to tell the story. My colleague Lisa Doge, who serves our congregation in Hanska, Minnesota, writes, "The true story of Passover is this. The human journey brings us, each of us, again and again into slavery, and up from slavery into the wilderness, and delivers us to the promised land. The true story of Easter is this. The human calendar is filled with Good Fridays and Easter mornings, days of death and days of resurrection. These are holy days, my friends. This is a holy time. Come to remind us that in spite of everything, the human spirit is capable of triumphing in ways nothing short of miraculous against all odds. And indeed, it does. Again and again. I want to say something about miracles. There's a story of the Buddha meeting an ascetic who told him that having practiced for many years, he could now walk on water, and proceeded to cross the river. The Buddha, also purported to have been able to walk on water, was unimpressed. The feat, he said, was worth little more than the few cents it took to cross the ferry. Why didn't you just take the boat? For starters, no, a miracle is not just a good trick. In the Christian testaments, the original Greek words translated as miracle more accurately mean signs or wonders. A miracle points beyond itself, inspiring awe. American journalist George Howe Colt wrote, "The idea that serendipitous details of daily life might be telltales of some larger presence is alluring. It feels pleasant to be on alert for angels as opposed to, say, muggers. Are we willing to look for signs, to seek and find meaning and wonder, even to believe in miracles?" There are only two ways to live your life, said physicist Albert Einstein. One is as though nothing is a miracle. The other is to live as if everything is a miracle. Walt Whitman wrote, "As to me, I know nothing but miracles. To me, every hour of the light and dark is a miracle. Every cubic inch of space is a miracle." My colleague Lynn Unger writes, "The Easter story in all its grimness and glory is, after all, a sign and a wonder. It is a pointer toward the saving conviction that even when life is tragic, there is still hope that the irreparable might be in some unforeseen way repaired. In the most unexpected ways, miracles turn us from death toward life." I remember a story told by my friend and colleague, Rebecca Ann Parker. She was pregnant and eager to be a parent. Her husband, though, could not face parenthood and gave her the option of ending their marriage or ending the pregnancy. Rebecca had an abortion, and then her husband left her anyway. She was absolutely shattered. Years later, in her book, Proverbs of Ashes, she wrote, "Everything I most loved had slipped out of my hands. I felt there was nothing left to hold on to, not my marriage, not my child, not my faith. I spiraled into grief and self-directed anger, and one night I came to the end of my will to live. I just wanted the anguish to stop. I lived at the top of a hill above a lake. Sometime after midnight, I left my house and started walking down the hill. The water would be cold enough. I could walk into it and then swim and then let go, sink down into the darkness and go home to God." The thought was comforting. I had no second thoughts. The night was cold and clear. At the bottom of the hill, I crested a small grassy rise and began the descent to the welcoming water. When I was caught short by a barrier that hadn't been there before, it looked like a long line of oddly shaped sawhorses laid out to the left and to the right, the width of the grassy field. In the dark, I couldn't see a way to get around either end, but it looked like I could climb over the middle. I quickened my pace, impelled by grief that would not let me go. As I got closer, dark forms before my eyes seemed to be moving. I squinted to understand what I was seeing. The cold, bunchy shapes were human beings, bundled up in parkas and hats. The stick shapes weren't sawhorses, they were telescopes. It was the Seattle Astronomy Club. And one of them looked up from his eyepiece and said enthusiastically, "I have it focused perfectly on Jupiter. Come take a look." Rebecca continues, "I didn't want to be rude, so I bent down and looked through the telescope. There was Jupiter, banded red and glowing. "Isn't it great?" the astronomer asked. It was great. Jupiter was beautiful. Rebecca Parker concludes, "I simply couldn't kill myself in the presence of these people who had gotten up in the middle of a cold night and gone out with their home-built Radio Shack telescopes to look at planets and stars. And so the beauty of the night sky and the Seattle Astronomy Club kept me in this world." It would be wrong to think of this moment as one in which joy triumphed over despair. Good came out of bad, or love of life defeated desire for death. I did not, says Rebecca, I did not defeat negative feelings of anguish and despair because I saw something more lovely and good. My heart was still breaking with grief, but I became able to feel more. I was able to place that grief within a larger heart, within a wider embrace that could hold sorrow and joy, loss and illumination, death and life, life, life. Beloved spiritual companions, on this Passover and Easter Sunday, the facts are not what matter. What matters are the stories and how we live them. The true story of Passover is this. The human journey brings us, each of us, again and again into slavery, and up from slavery into the wilderness, and delivers us to the promised land. The story, the true story of Easter is this. The human calendar is filled with Good Fridays and Easter mornings, days of death and days of resurrection. This morning, Ukrainian refugees awakened in Israel, in the home of the woman whose grandmother was sheltered from the Holocaust in their grandmother's home. This morning, Rebecca Ann Parker will awaken because years ago, the Seattle Astronomy Club and something more beautiful than death kept her among the living. May we, too, know the triumph of the human spirit. Incline our hearts to freedom and turn from death to life. Amen. Bravo. I want to tell you a story about the generosity of this community. In September, when Afghanistan fell to the Taliban, our partners at the Memory Project organized and fundraised for flights to Pakistan for 7 families who had been working with them and thus, as so-called collaborators, were in grave danger. The Memory Project rented 2 houses there where 33 Afghan refugees, 17 children, 3 teens, 7 women, and 6 men were entirely in their care. On Christmas Eve here at Arlington Street, we stepped up to raise money to support these households. Members and friends put thousands and thousands of dollars into the virtual collection plate beyond our wildest dreams. And our treasurer, Liz Texera, sent it off to the Memory Project. One of those Afghans is a woman named Rabina, who was the head scout leader for all the Girl Scouts in Afghanistan, qualifying her as an activist for girls' rights, a threat. Months ago, her entire family was referred for resettlement in Canada, where the Canadian government will cover their expenses for 1 year, including housing and medical. Oddly, though, they would not cover the cost of plane tickets. A week ago on Tuesday, on April 5th, they made a dramatic exit from Pakistan. And guess who helped pay for those plane tickets? We did. We did. It was the first time any of them had flown nearly 22 hours from Islamabad to Calgary. When they landed on Wednesday the 6th, the Memory Project's Ben Schumacher asked, "Are you tired?" And one of the family members answered for all of them, "No, we are just so happy." This, my friends, is Arlington Street's work in the world. Today's offering makes it possible for us to support our staff, our building, and our beloved spiritual community, and to amplify our mission of love, service, justice, and peace. I am so honored and so grateful to be one of you.
Friends, Arlington Street is entirely self-sustaining. It's up to us to fund the beloved spiritual community we want to create. A very special thank you to Tammy and Zoe Arcuri, whose giving fund has once again made a generous match for our generosity today. Please take a moment now to join Reverend Kim and me in making a special Easter gift for the morning offering. If you'd like to give the old-fashioned way, you can write a check and mail it to the church, or use the envelopes in the pews, which can be handed to Kim or me, or to any of our ushers after the service. You can also give online by going to tinyurl.com/giveasc. That's tinyurl.com/GIVEASC. You can also text your gift to the church. Just for fun, let's try this together today. I'm going to invite you to take out your cell phone and feel free to play along just to see how it works. You aren't actually committed until the final step of the process. All right, so if you've got your phone out, Open the app that you use to send texts and start a new message. In the to line, you're going to type this phone number that you've heard me say many times.
I'll do it on your phone.
Oh, great. You can type 617-300-0509. I'm going to say that again. It's 617-300-0509. In the message section, just type the word give, G-I-V-E, and hit send. Instructions on completing your gift will magically appear. If I went too fast, the directions are in the order of service. You can give online or by text at any time, not just on Sunday mornings. Reverend Kim, Mark David, and I thank you. Rabina and her family thank you. And the world thanks you for supporting our extraordinary and transforming mission. Love, service, justice, peace.
Why should I feel discouraged? Why should the shadows come? Why should my heart be lonely and long for heaven home? When Jesus is my portion, my constant friend is He. His eyes on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. I sing because I'm happy. I sing because I'm free. His eyes on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. Let not your heart be troubled. His tender word I hear, resting upon His goodness. I lose my doubts and fears. Though by the path He leads me, but one step I may see. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. I sing because I'm happy. I sing because I'm free. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know He watches me.
whenever I am tempted, whenever clouds arise, when songs give place to sighing, when hope within me dies, I draw thee closer to him. From care he sets me free. His eyes on the sparrow, and I know he watches me. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know he watches me. I sing because I'm happy. I sing because I'm free. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know he watches me. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know he watches over me.
Many, many thanks to Arlington Street's very own jazz man, Joe Della Penna. There are weekly gatherings in the Zoom room for loving kindness meditation, poetry, yoga, and writing. This Wednesday, Professor Alan Helms and Reverend Kim are hosting the Wednesdays Literary Salon, reading the provocative and witty poetry of Poland's Sambora. And every Wednesday, Reverend Kim and I host a tea party with a lively conversation prompt. This week's prompt is, what's a time when you were the right person in the right place at the right time? All are welcome. All of these gatherings are on Zoom, and more information is on ascboston.org. To attend any of them, you don't have to be a member. You don't have to turn your video on or talk if you don't want to. And they're all free. Each Sunday, we share our collection plate with a partner in our mission of love, service, justice, and peace. Over the course of the pandemic, we have continued that practice on faith, and the generosity of Arlington Street members and friends has been both unwavering and lavish. Each year on Easter Sunday, we celebrate our music program. Under the inspired leadership of our director of music, Mark David Buckles, the beautiful gift of music from our soloists and instrumentalists has carried us through the most difficult days of the pandemic and uplifts and inspires us every single week. Today, let's make a special gift to show them our gratitude and love. You can write a check or give to the music program online at tinyurl.com/giveasc. Or you can text your gift like we just practiced. The phone number is the same, 617-300-0509. In the message, just type the word share, S-H-A-R-E. Touch send and follow the prompts from there. Thank you for your generous support. Following the service, everyone is welcome to join virtual coffee hour. If you'd like to participate, please answer yes to the breakout room invitation that will appear on your screen. Reverend Kim and I will be out front. We invite those in the sanctuary to please come and say hello after virtual coffee hour. Thanks to all who joined in today's service and all of those who made it possible. Remember, we are in this together. I love you. Happy Easter.
Our closing hymn is multiple choice. Some of us will enjoy singing the Unitarian Universalist words, "Lo, the earth awakes again, Alleluia, from the winter's bond and pain, Alleluia." However, in celebration of all the ways we experience resurrection and with special love for childhood Easters, some of you may prefer to sing the Christian words, "Jesus Christ is risen today, Alleluia, earth and heaven in chorus say, Alleluia." Both sets of words are in the order of service. The tune is the same, and we can meet at the Alleluias. Ready? Let's rise in body, rise in spirit, and sing our hearts out. For our benediction, I invite those of you in the Zoom room to please reach out your hands and touch the sides of your square. And those of you in the sanctuary to please raise your hands, palms out. Let's send loving kindness to the people to your left and to your right. Send loving kindness to the person on either side of you and to the people on either side of them. Send out love to this beloved spiritual community and feel it coming back to you. Love is the spirit of this congregation. And now for our benediction, I invite you to put your hands over your heart in Namaste. I bow to the divine in you. The true story of Passover is this. The human journey brings us, each of us, again and again into slavery and up for slavery into the wilderness and delivers us to the promised land. The true story of Easter is this. The human calendar is filled with Good Fridays and Easter mornings, days of death and days of resurrection. May we too know the triumph of the human spirit. Incline our hearts to freedom and turn from death to life. Let us keep this faith, beloveds, and pass it on. The service begins when the service ends. Bless your hearts. I love you. Happy Easter. Amen.
visit ascboston.org for more information about this historic Unitarian Universalist congregation. Arlington Street Church, gathered in love and service for justice and peace.